I am the sorceress, a queen, and Snow White's stepmother. They all say I wanted to kill her just because I lost to Snow White in beauty. How ridiculous. Fools cannot fathom the depth of a woman's true hunger for power. With their stunted, narrow minds, they can only label my formidable ambition as mere jealousy. From the time I was a child, I craved for more than just a beautiful skin. I, too, once had a mother. When I was little, she would hold me close and tell me bedtime stories about me. That winter was cruelly cold. The blizzard sealed off the mountains. All I could see was endless white. She was out hunting when she was drawn by a strange, horrific wail. A naked infant, still bloody, lay there in the snow, her small hands grasping wildly at the empty air, a struggle for life, a final dying plea. That child was me. Crows circled overhead, simply waiting for me to take my last breath so they could feed. My mother, who hated infants, hadn't intended to save me. Just then, a crow couldn't resist and pecked at my tiny palm. I found some unimaginable strength and snapped its foot right off. This child holds an immeasurable power, my mother must have thought. She opened her mouth, and May, my sister, a brilliantly gleaming black viper, slid out. She coiled beside me. May flicked her tongue, licking the snow and tears from my face, then drew me out of the drift and delivered me into my mother's arms. Yes, my mother was also a sorceress, one who lived alone and hidden deep within the mountains. My mother fed me on goat's milk and mashed apples. By the age of 3, she was already teaching me to read and starting my basic lessons in witchcraft. I became utterly obsessed with these books, these keys to power. I absorbed knowledge from my mother with greed like an infant feeding from its mother's breast. By 17, I had mastered the sorcery that took my mother half a lifetime to learn. Every savage beast in the forest would give me a wide berth. But I was no longer satisfied conquering just animals. I longed to leave the deep mountains, to make the people who abandoned me kneel in repentance, and to make more people submit to my might. Mother warned me, to the people beyond these hills, sorceresses were symbols of evil and danger. Our very presence would only fill them with fear. Fear me. That's exactly what I wanted. I slipped out of the mountains in secret. Not long after, Mother left too, all to find me. When I finally reunited with Mother, she had an unfamiliar man by her side. I had no interest in how they fell in love, but the ambition burning in his eyes was the very same fire that burned in mine. Oh, Mother, why would you always get attracted to those emboldened by the flame of ambitions? First it was me, and now it is him. When two beasts meet, one must die. I decided to strike first and kill him. But Mother threw herself in front of him and was severely wounded by my sorcery. Her betrayal enraged me, and I turned my back on her without a second thought. That is the only decision I have ever regretted in this life. A terrifying, gruesome wail tore through the sky. It was the cry that came from my mother's throat. I practically fell over myself rushing back, only to see her bound to a cross, the fierce flames already consuming her. And my sister May, her jaw was stretched in a near impossible scream, yet she could not inject her venom into those who hurt them because her head had already been severed and her skin stripped entirely away. And that man, my mother's lover, stood there, holding Mother's magic mirror, reciting the spell with his townsfolk that would turn a witch to ash. He took advantage of my mother's wounded state and weakness, driving a sharp wooden spike into her skull. His purpose was clear, the magic mirror. A mirror that could foresee your deadliest enemy, and by killing that enemy, you could obtain anything you desired. Mother never allowed me to look into that mirror. She said the glass reveals not only your foe, but also your own naked desire. Desire has always been a double-edged sword, and now the very sword was hanging over my mother's head. That man claimed mother died because of me, and that if I truly loved her, I should kill myself and join her in death. Laughable. Your hands are stained with the blood of mother and May, yet you dare push all your guilt onto me. I screamed and lunged toward my mother, tearing every person who tried to stop me into pieces. Tears of fear mixed with foul blood spread across the ground, yet they couldn't extinguish the flames consuming mother, nor could they quench the fury erupting inside of me. The town burned for a whole night. The heat melted the snow, mixing blood and mud together into a color that mirrored May's eyes in death. Crows circled overhead, diving down now and then to peck at the hundreds of charred corpses. Unfortunately, my own body had been run through with that man's spike, so I couldn't stay to enjoy the spectacle. I took mother's magic mirror and fled the ruins, collapsing once again in the ice and snow. This time, the one who saved me was also a man, a king. To survive, I hid my identity as a witch, adopting the fragile appearance that men love best, winning his sympathy and pity. It wasn't long before he proposed. Mother's tragic end didn't scare me into running back to the mountains. On the contrary, isn't it much more ironic and far more amusing for a witch whom the whole world fears to become a queen? I accepted his proposal and returned with him to the palace. There, I met his daughter by his late wife, Snow White. The very first moment Snow White saw me, she couldn't help but sigh a compliment. "You are truly beautiful." Of course I was beautiful. Beautiful enough to easily secure this queen's throne. But I also knew that this little thing standing before me would one day become even more beautiful. Snow White's eyes were bright, her hair black as ebony window frames, and her snow white skin made her lips vivid, like a red apple in the snow, emitting a sweet, tempting scent. Beautiful? Yes, but tragically too docile. She had no sharp edges, and she didn't even know the true cause of her own mother's death. The maids often gossiped behind their hands that Snow White's birth mother died of sheer depression. That woman had a childhood sweetheart, but the king coveted her beauty and threatened the life of her lover to force her hand in marriage, effectively imprisoning her in the palace. She spent her days weeping, and finally, consumed by grief, she died shortly after giving birth to Snow White. The maids pitied the former queen's fate, but I found it utterly foolish. To wither away in pain rather than fight, seize, or scheme, how could someone so weak ever deserve the title of queen? I despised her cowardice, swearing I would never allow myself to be used or trampled upon. Yet, when I accidentally glimpsed her portrait, my blood ran cold. I was her substitute. The king didn't marry me because of my cunning. It was merely because I bore a slight resemblance to his dead queen. I, who believed I controlled everything, was in fact the pawn being manipulated in the palm of his hand. I refused to compete for affection with a dead woman. This man's love is worthless to me, but he dared to deceive me. My pretense of fragility was an act of mercy. His choice to deceive, however, is his own death sentence. I bit into the apple. The sweet juice dripped onto the bedsheets, mixing with his blood. His pupils were still trembling. This arrogant monarch, even in death, never grasped how the substitute he personally chose, this fragile woman whose finger could be pricked by a rose thorn, managed to pierce his heart with such deadly accuracy. A king sitting high on his throne, his blood tastes no different from anyone else's. I didn't kill him out of spite. I was suddenly seized by a much more intriguing idea. How powerful could a kingdom be if it were ruled by a witch? A kingdom that could endlessly generate witches. I am going to be king. Those stuffy old fools dared to claim that a queen without proper lineage couldn't rule. They proposed to find a prince consort for Snow White, plotting to have her children ascend to the throne. I don't like listening to those idiots speak, so I arranged for them to be permanently silent. But the magic mirror confirmed it. My greatest threat to becoming king is Snow White. Very well, it's time for Snow White to reunite with her parents. I sent the huntsman to kill her, but he was bewitched by her beauty. Not only did he defy my command, he tried to fool me with the internal organs of a wild boar. The scent of human blood. I know it far better than you do. Snow White is too beautiful. No man will ever be able to kill her. I must do it myself. That little vermin certainly can run. She actually escaped into the neighboring kingdom. I've only just secured the throne, so I don't want to start a war with the neighbors right now. I had no choice but to transform into an old hag and sneak into their territory to assassinate Snow White. Gosh, she was difficult to kill. 3 times, a full 3 times, and I failed to take her life. Shedding the blood of an entire town for my revenge was easier than executing her. In the end, she didn't just survive. She married the neighboring prince and hired a more powerful sorcerer to place a curse on me, stripping me of my witchcraft and locking me in this dungeon. I initially believed this was Snow White's revenge, but I eventually figured it out. The entire thing was the prince's plot. When the red-hot iron was poured onto my ankles, my flesh made a sickening sizzling sound. In the midst of the acrid smoke, I suddenly remembered Mother being consumed by the flames. The agony of being burned by the one you love must have been 1,000 times worse than what I feel now. The prince leaned down and told me he could never forget the sight of Snow White dead, that she was so beautiful it left him breathless and utterly spellbound. He offered to spare my life, provided I would brew a poison that would keep her corpse preserved forever, turning Snow White back into his most perfect collection piece. I suddenly burst into laughter, laughing until my vision blurred with tears. Oh, Snow White, Snow White, your prince is a monster, far more wicked than any witch. Of course I will agree to his bargain. I must live to see the prince reap what he has sown, and more importantly, to witness the spectacular look on Snow White's eternally innocent face when she finally discovers the truth. Dragging my broken body, I continued brewing the poison while simultaneously attempting to reclaim my witchcraft. But the sorcerer's curse was too venomous. My body was already fragmented, unable to withstand even the simplest spell. The turning point in my fate arrived quietly several years later. That mad prince began using young girls to test the poison, and every dying girl shed a single tear. I secretly hoarded them. The girl's resentment and bitterness are a witch's best nourishment. With his dark power, I finally break free from the shackles of the curse and mastered the art of transfiguration. Unfortunately, those tears were both nourishment and deadly poison. The spell they empowered will kill me after a single use. Therefore, I must wait. I must endure and save this lethal ability for the most crucial moment. During this time, news of Snow White kept reaching me. I was stunned by her transformation. Her beauty was no longer paired with an empty head. She was completely unlike the little pest I once knew. No, I should have realized it sooner. The moment the magic mirror showed her face, I should have known that a person destined to be my arch-enemy would never be a mere beautiful doll. My urge to tell Snow White the truth grows stronger, but the shackles made every step an agonizing stab of pain I couldn't escape. That is, until I heard that Snow White had been imprisoned and was soon to be executed. Snow White could not be allowed to die without knowing everything. So, I transformed into May and slithered towards Snow White, tearing the horrible, naked truth open right in front of her. Weep, struggle, rage, and then, consumed by despair, die alongside me. Snow White's choice shattered all my expectations. Instead, she proposed an alliance. To show her sincerity, she was even willing to let me, in my viper form, slither down her throat. While my logic was still weighing the options, my body acted on its own. While we waited for the prince, my fangs pressed against her artery, quivering slightly. With just a gentle stab, she would be dead instantly, and years of hatred and resentment could finally end right there. To kill or not to kill? Should I kill her or shouldn't I? My thoughts were a blur. Suddenly I began to guess what this new Snow White was thinking. Why would she dare let me slither down her throat? Didn't she fear I would suddenly change my mind and kill her first? Though her breathing and heartbeat were suspended, her blood was calm, without a single ripple. She trusted me not to strike prematurely, otherwise she wouldn't have handed her life over to me. Mother? Did she just call me Mother? Suddenly, an even more intriguing idea struck me. I have decided. I will not kill Snow. I followed the plan. I slithered down the prince's throat and injected the concentrated poison, the tears of the dying girls, into his body. As I tore through his throat, I glanced at Snow White. She was both laughing and crying. Weep, laugh, rage, mourn. From this day forward, you will taste many more complex emotions. As an heir without proper lineage, a queen without a child, a woman all alone, you will face this world's malice by yourself. Those who hate and envy you will appear endlessly. You must fight them, scheme against them, hurt them, and be hurt by them. Perhaps on your deathbed you will shed a tear, regretting why you didn't simply die from my poison apple long ago. Until then, live well, Snow White, my obstacle, my opponent, my daughter. Your entire life will be a walk on thin ice. This is my most venomous curse upon you, and I, at last, I'm free.